This isn't New Horizons! You may remember Android for the Nintendo Switch, which came out in the summer of last year, and you could play some of your favourite Android games using the Joy-Cons on your Switch and use your device as an actual Android tablet. Now, obviously Android tablets aren't exactly all the rage anymore, if they ever were, but there's a lot of useful things that you could actually do with your Switch thanks to Android if you set it up. I set it up on my Switch and I walked through some of the things you could do, which included playing emulators and other things, but the Joy-Cons in particular were kind of buggy and a lot of things just didn't work. Now that's changed with the release of Android 10 for the Nintendo Switch, thanks again to the switchroot team, and this is based on Lineage OS 17.1. There's a lot of different changes, a lot of improvements, and overall it's a much better experience. So yeah, I'm just going to go through some of the stuff and kind of different things that you can do with Android on your Nintendo Switch. This is Adam Conway with XDA TV. Let's get started. The Switch is first and foremost a games console. Now, whether you want to call it a handheld or a console doesn't really matter. Point is, you take this, you play games on it, that's its primary purpose. So obviously when we go into Android, it's pretty much the same thing. You are not going to be using this as a generic Android tablet, though you can. You are going to be benefiting primarily from the fact that there are the Joy-Cons and the Tegra X1 chipset. The Tegra X1 chipset is relatively underpowered by today's standards, but the GPU in it still holds up relatively well against other system on chips that exist on other Android devices. So you'll see that while it will do fairly poorly in benchmarks, applications and games that are GPU bound will run pretty well. If you have a game that you can emulate and it runs well, feel free to bump up the internal resolution because it will likely not have any effect on the actual performance. For example, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, I didn't find any performance hit from increasing the internal resolution to 1080p, despite the fact that it actually would sometimes struggle with the game regardless. It didn't matter what resolution I had it at because the GPU in the Tegra X1 can handle it. It's the CPU that has issues. Likewise, any other games that can use the Joy-Cons is exactly what this is going to be geared towards. Any emulators like Drastic or PPSSPP, all those can use the Joy-Cons natively so that you will be able to play games with a pair of controllers built into the actual system. Likewise with the Steam Link, you can actually stream PC games to your Switch, and I was able to play Cyberpunk 2077 on my Switch without any issues whatsoever. Is it practical? Surprisingly yes, but will you want to actually keep your Switch in Android mode at all times? Probably not. Now obviously the Nintendo Switch was not actually made for this kind of thing, so there are a lot of missing features that you can't ever get. For example, there is no microphone on the Nintendo Switch, and there is no GPS either, so your dreams of having a large screened Pokemon Go machine that can reboot and play Pokemon Let's Go Eevee or Pikachu or whatever, those are dashed. You're not going to be able to do that. As well, the screen doesn't get all that bright, and the battery is fine. It's not great. You're going to want to stick near a charger for this, and they did mostly fix the deep sleep issue where when you turn off the screen it continuously drains, but you're still going to have battery issues no matter what you do because it's still not meant to be always active, especially if you enable performance mode in the settings, which I have done and you are likely going to need to do for any emulation. But of course you can use this for watching Netflix or whatever, which I've set up. You can also watch YouTube, you can watch Twitch streams, and the speakers on it work perfectly, and you can listen to music with Bluetooth headphones. There are some connectivity issues, but by and large it works pretty well, and it's more or less the same experience you would expect on an Android device anyway. All in all, Android on the Nintendo Switch is much improved and actually viable now. It's pretty easy to set up and you no longer need to sacrifice the whole microSD card for it. That is, of course, unless you wanted to mess with partition stuff. And you can just have a dual boot alongside your Nintendo Switch's Horizon OS, which is the name of the operating system that Nintendo has on the Switch. You don't need to replace it. This is a dual boot. All you need is an RCM jig and a way of sending the payload to your Switch to get into a Acati to boot up Android. All of this is going to be in the description alongside an article that I wrote as well for the XDA portal talking about my experience more in depth and kind of maybe a little bit more nuance in case you want to find out more. There will of course be instructions for installing it and all that kind of thing, so if you want to give it a try and you have an unpatched Nintendo Switch, then you can. This has been Adam Conway with XDA TV talking about Android on the Nintendo Switch. Thanks for watching.